The other gods hide in fear of mortal retribution, save Thanatos, the god of death. As the reaper of their souls, he feels he has nothing to fear from mortal kind. But there are those who are determined to prove Thanatos wrong. Those who would use this time and this place to claim the power of death for themselves.
Thank you for tuning in. This is DJ Bob Fresh from SegaShooter.com, your Sega resource. And today we're looking at Tournament of Legends. This is by the developer team at High Voltage. You might remember them from The Conduit, and they're currently working on The Conduit 2. So if I had to say anything about Tournament of Legends, it seemed to me that it's a game that somewhere along the development cycle lost its identity. Now, in the very basic sense, as a budget title in an underrepresented genre on the Nintendo Wii, Tournament of Legends could be considered a success as a fighting game for casual fans. Essentially, if you've wanted to wave the Wii remote as a battle axe or as a sword, this does sort of fulfill that niche. If you're really into fighting games, well, you're probably better off playing something along the lines of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. However, let's get back to the game at hand. There's two control options in the title. One where is the standard one where you're waving the Wiimote around, and the other is the classic controller. And while I found the classic controller more accurate, the game was geared to be played with the Wiimote. So I actually found using the motion controls more fun, simply because the game's engine, the speed, and the pace all seem to be geared around motion controls rather than the more precise analog controls. This is partly due to the depth of the engine. There is a combo system intact, and enchantments that you can pick up and use throughout the game, as well as new weapons. However, none of this really changes the feel of the game all that much. Because the fighting engine is so basic, the motion controls feel more natural than the classic controller. Now, as you can see from the screens above, there's 8 characters to start with, 2 that are unlockable, and there's a variety of little mini-games that happen in each match, where you're using the motion controller to either dodge large creatures, or to get your character back up. There's even mid-mission or mid-act mini-games that are a little bit like the Mortal Kombat Test Your Might sections, except not as well done. They serve to recharge your character and to upgrade their armor back to full status. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Tournament of Legends feels a bit of a game like a game that has a identity crisis. And in some ways that's true, because if you look at the development cycle, this originally started as a historically accurate M-rated gladiator combat game. So in a way it was going to simulate gladiator combat with buckets of gore and realism. And along the way it got turned into a teen-rated fantasy fighting game with the casual market in mind. And so there's some odd choices that come with this. So the game is filled with campy dialogue and silly voice acting, and in a way, it's kind of hard to take seriously. Now, I'm a type of gamer that knows that sometimes a game can be so bad that it's good, and sometimes campy voice acting and funny one-liners can actually work to better a game. In this situation, it just seems tacked on. More startling is the fact that it starts off with like some great 90s artwork and almost begins to make you think that it's going to be like Eternal Champions, and then it just falls way short of that. All of the characters are pretty generic. In fact, that's probably the biggest problem with the game, is that there's no character that's immediately likable or funny enough to really warrant your input. All the designs just don't really work, and kind of throw back to the 90s, but the worst part of the 90s, the fighting games that you forgot about. Where the game does excel is in accessibility. Pretty much anyone can pick up and play this fighting game, which is rare. In a lot of sort of fan-favorite fighting games, there's combo systems and things you really need to learn to get into it. But this, anybody can pick up and play. Pretty much the best way to play this title is in versus mode. However, you won't be taking your battles online. This is strictly a local multiplayer experience. The graphic engine is also surprisingly solid for a budget title. And on the technical side, this game fares pretty well. There's no glaring issues, and at times it does look pretty, at least the backgrounds do. Ultimately, the problem with Tournament of Legends is that it inspired no response from me. I didn't hate it, and I didn't really like it. It just simply was. At $29, it's not a bad deal. but it's not a great one either. This is DJ Fob Fresh signing out, saying keep on gaming.